All right, so we're gonna do 3 other problems, and the 3 problems that we're gonna do now is what we learned like the day before we went on break. It's called simplifying rational expressions. So I'll write that down if you wanna put it in your notes, that would be a good idea. So we're gonna be simplifying rational, that means like fractions kind of, right? Expressions. And like I said, we're gonna do 3 problems, how to do it, and I'm kind of gonna walk you through it. It'll probably be 3 separate videos just because it's faster to upload if they're short. So number 1, this is the problem right here. So if you wanna pause the video and write that down. And then the directions are here. It says factor, meaning write it as a product. Now, factor means like when we split it up so that it has parentheses and it's multiplying. Well, this is already done. So we don't have to factor this one. The other 2 that we practice, we will have to factor. Then it says use the giant 1 to simplify. So remember, we're gonna try to make 1s when we can. And then list any values that should be excluded. So remember, we talked about excluded values. The bottom of a fraction, the denominator cannot equal 0 ever. So we have to say what x can't equal. All right, so this first one, like I said, first step is to factor. This one is already factored. It already is split up into its parentheses. So then from there, technically you could start simplifying right now, but what I like to do is I like to rewrite things in order, right? Because right now this 3x plus 2 and this 3x plus 2, when they divide, they're gonna make a 1. But I like to rewrite it in order. So if I have 2x, you don't have to, but I just like to. Then I'm gonna put the x minus 4 first, and I'm gonna put the 3x plus 2 last. Then divide by, right? That's what makes it rational, is because it has that divide by. Then there's this 4. And one thing that I notice, because I've done this a lot, right, is I have a 2 and I have a 4. I think that there's a way to simplify those. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna see if I can break the 4 down so that I can make a 1. So instead of writing this as 4, I'm gonna write it as 2 times 2. Then I have an x plus 3 in parentheses, and I have a 3x plus 2. And then from before break, I remember that if I have something divided by itself, it makes the number 1. So what I'm gonna do now that I have it all written out, it's in factored form already, I'm gonna start making 1s. So first thing I'm gonna do, a 2 divided by a 2, that makes 1. You could just cross it off, we talked about that, but I like to make the number 1 because that's what we're doing, is we're actually making a number 1. This doesn't simplify, but this 3x plus 2 over 3x plus 2, that does simplify. It makes the number 1 because it's something divided by the exact same thing. So I was able to make 2 1s in this problem. I'm not always able to do that, but in this problem I was. And then I have 2 parts when I write my answer. I have to write my answer like everything that's left over. So on the top I have an x left over and I have an x minus 4. So I'm gonna start writing my answer over here. I have an x and I have an x minus 4. And then on the bottom, I crossed off, so it was a 4, but I made it 2 times 2. And I crossed off one of the 2's, but I still have one of the 2's left. And I also have an x plus 3 left. So when I write on the bottom, I have a 2 and I have an x plus 3. So this is part of my answer. But then remember, I'm also supposed to write down the excluded values, what x cannot equal. And to find these, I always look at the bottom of a fraction. One thing I need to make sure you know is you have to go back to your original one, like not the original, but like the one where we rewrote it in factored form, because technically we can't have this part equal 0 and we also can't have this part equal 0. 2 is never gonna equal 0 and this 2 is never gonna equal 0, but this part can't equal 0 and neither can this part. So I'm gonna have 2 excluded values, whereas if I just looked here, it looks like I only have 1 excluded value. So remember to do that, we say x can't equal and x can't equal, right? We don't want to say what it does equal, we want to say what it doesn't equal. So what number can I not plug in here, right? Because I can't get 0. I'm allowed to plug in 0, right? 0 plus 3 makes 3. That's fine, nothing wrong with that. But what I can't do is I can't plug in a -3, because -3 plus 3 makes 0, and that's not going to work. So x can't be a -3 because I'm not allowed to plug in -3 into this one. And then this one right here is a decimal number. We'll talk more in class about how to get those decimal ones because they're kind of tricky. But what I end up getting here is -2/3. I can't plug that in right there. Or if you prefer it as a decimal, -0.6 repeating. So all of this part is my answer. I don't know if I'll be able to put a box around it, but I'm gonna try. Okay, so I have my simplified fraction, and then I also have what x can't equal. All of that is part of my answer. All right, I'm gonna stop this video, and then we're gonna practice another one.